Well, a little Jesus and coffee to keep us going at 5 o'clock in the afternoon on a Tuesday. Welcome to this week's episode of Norseman Narratives, live at 5. Fantastic. So, I am going to, we're going to do a little recap episode this time. A little more casual. Look at the hair's growing a little bit. So, some of you on here have known me for a long time, so you know having hair is kind of a different thing. This is my midlife crisis, is growing out some hair. So, but I still got to keep it off my sides and my neck, or I can't stand it. So. But anyway, I wanted to show off my Norway shirt. I myself am Norwegian and Swedish, and like 12.5% German. But they sell these at an awesome shop in the area, in a place called Crosby, which is right by Brainerd here, at a store called Nordhaus. So check them out. We picked these up last season. I got the Norway one and the Swedish one because I am Norwegian and Swedish. And I don't remember if they had other ones like, and then on the front it says Sweden in English, and on the back Sverige. And same with the Norway one, it says Norway on the front and Norge on the back. So pretty cool deal. And so I just thought I'd show those off and recommend you stop by the Nordhaus in Crosby if you get a chance while you're up. Even though I know a lot of people were just up for the Memorial Weekend and they're gone already. So, but if you come, you'll come up again. So don't forget about the Nordhaus there if you haven't heard of it yet. It's by the Raffertys, if you know that. So everybody seems to know the Raffertys. So welcome to this week's episode. Really exciting. We are doing the recap, like I said, because as many of you know, the show and the channel has kind of really taken off in the last couple months, really in the last month. A lot of viewership locally and a lot of people enjoying the show. So I just thought we've been at this for about 13 years. Very small viewership, just a hobby of mine, really. And so I thought I'd just recap the whole thing, tell you a little bit about us and what we're doing here on the channel. Say hi to all the new followers and viewers. Thanks for joining us. Really love having you. Our main content is going to be animals, nature, farm animals, homesteading kind of stuff, and Brainerd Lakes area happenings, events, people, places, just everything exciting and wonderful about the Brainerd Lakes area. A really big promotion of the Brainerd Lakes area. I like to promote, let's see, I have a little bit different setup here. If you haven't noticed, we're doing the porch talk, which I do on some of my shorts, but I usually do the show out there. I'm not doing that because, again, when the clouds break today, I'm having that really bright sun come through. So, and this being the recap episode, we're not going to go over like real serious stuff, and that's why I'm just doing a little bit more Memorial Weekend informal. We will talk about that a little bit, so maybe not so much. Let's not be negative about it, but pretty, seeing the governor and Frey memorializing George Floyd instead of our fallen heroes this weekend. I mean, that is really the epitome of why I started the show and decided to go political again. So we'll talk about that too. So let's just, I guess we'll just go back, all the way back. So when I first started the channel, the Facebook thing, it was mostly a political thing. And I was a big supporter of Trump in the beginning and a big Trump guy. And that's what the channel was all about for, several years anyway. And just supporting Republican politics and stuff like that. And then if at that time, if you've ever heard of Owen Benjamin, he wasn't actually the person who started. So when YouTube started growing a lot, there were a lot of homesteaders and farm people and people that were leaving the city, and a lot of the things that are now just 1,000 times worse here 6-7 years later, well 10 years later when that movement started. were becoming so apparent to many of us. And for my family in particular, there were some, there was a major tragedy in our family that had a lot to do with it. But we also basically got gentrified, which we now in hindsight understand that it was because so many people were being brought in and subsidized. And the cost of housing just went through the roof. Anybody in the whole nation knows that, not just for people here in Minnesota, but everything was just going crazy, with the George Floyd kind of stuff and that whole movement, which started out actually about a homeless man in Albuquerque who was literally hunted down and murdered. He was a mentally ill person. And granted, he had been belligerent with the police, and he slapped one of the female officers. So they went up there and they hunted him. Like, they literally just hunted him. They taunted him with dogs and with other things, and then they murdered him. I mean, they murdered him. It was all on camera. They were laughing about it. It was super sick. If you remember, because that's when Facebook was first blowing up, and all those police incidents were being broadcast all over Facebook, and then it all got hijacked by BLM. It got turned all into a race thing that had nothing to do with race in the first place, and then they're like, well, it is now, and the Marxists came in, and I would say the authoritarians themselves, in a bid to discredit or divide people, because they were so focused on what was really happening, which really was authoritarian, boot on neck stomping, murdering. I mean, just really crazy stuff we all know went on for a long time. And we all know it. We all grew up here. I'm from up north, but I lived a lot in the city, and I've been around. I've seen a lot of stuff, and I've just been around the block, and we all know what used to go on and what does go on. So that stuff had to be addressed, and I'm glad that it was addressed in a way, but then it got hijacked by BLM and turned into a defund the police and all this other stuff, and really got wrecked. Same with, like, originally the Occupy Wall Street / Occupy Minneapolis movement, which was all about the banks, all about the Great Recession, right, which was just the greatest theft of all time. And then you had people like on Fox News, like Hannity and them, blaming poor people that couldn't afford a house and all this kind of stupid stuff. And, just a disaster. The whole thing was a disaster. Anyway, everybody knows what led up to Trump. We all know. And so that's how I originally got involved on Facebook, being really political. And then, I got kind of somewhere, and then anyway, so along the line, there was a lot of people doing the farm content and the homesteading content, and then Owen Benjamin got involved in some stuff, and he was talking about how they're, transitioning these kids and stuff, which is, those, in my personal opinion, it should be Republican Party platform issue that anyone involved in transitioning a minor prepubescent child needs jail time at this. They need to have jail time. There was no that was, and it doesn't matter if it was among the elites and stuff where they went off into this crazy town thing. Crazy town is crazy town, and when you go off into crazy town and you hurt people, there's punishment for that. There has to be consequences for that. So those people that participated in that should ultimately be punished in some way. But it has to be ended anyway. So that all started, and, Owen Benjamin started talking about the Beartaria movement, and everybody was talking about moving out of the cities and stuff. And then our family experienced a really, truly extreme tragedy. And again, we were being gentrified at the time. There was all kinds of chaos going on there, and we made the decision to move. I had chickens. I always have chickens. And, I had a neighbor down there. I had to get rid of my chickens anyway. I had to get rid of my chickens. So I brought my chickens up here to some relatives up here. And then we kind of went through Brainerd and we saw how much it developed. And we both worked in manufacturing. So we did a little looking online and saw that there was manufacturers here. There was even a stamping place here. And I'm a tool and die maker. So I just kind of, and there was another Pequot tool that doesn't do a lot of stamping now. They do a lot of machining and stuff. But either way, I thought there was going to be career options up here and stuff too, and I thought there was going to be work for my wife up here too. We will discuss that also because, in hindsight, that didn't work out the way we planned either. Did mostly for her though, so that's a good thing. So it's not all negative. None of it's negative. Moving here was the best thing we ever did, and we love it. There are some issues that I'll make you aware of through this episode. And that's the whole thing too. So we started kind of documenting what we were doing. Moving here, the ultimate goal is a homestead with a small herd of mini Jersey milking cows. And I want to make 2 kinds of cheese, and I want to grow asparagus. Some things have gotten in the way along the way, and it hasn't worked out exactly as planned, So you watch videos like on YouTube and stuff, and it's all kind of picture perfect, and I don't know if they're making a bunch of money. I don't make any money doing this, like the videos and stuff. This is all stuff, like I said, I just do this as a hobby and as part of documenting our Beartaria experience, right? So that's what Owen and us, the people who got into that whole kind of thing at the time before they banned him and everything. The idea was to be the solution, be the solution, and get self-sufficient, do the homesteading thing, get your family out of those cities, get away from the brainwashing and the lies, and get back to our more traditional life. And then me being also from up north, I had a lot more experience with that as a kid, and I honestly would have always kind of wanted to live more up north, like by Bemidji and by my family and stuff up there. But there's just various, same things that drew us to the city. Originally, my mom took me to the city when I was like 7, and then she married my stepdad, and then I did end up, I went to Spring Lake Park High School and stuff like that. And so when I went there, I think it was like the 3rd best school in the state, and we were like the 3rd best state in the union. So it was a really good school. It's expensive even to live there when we went there. So we knew that. It was already expensive. But that's that more middle class to upper middle class standard of living that I wanted to provide for my kids, and the education, and kind of that suburban, American dream kind of thing. Which they mostly, did have also, other than, ultimately we left there, and it was not the same place that I grew up at. So there's an interesting meme online that talks about that, which is, you can't raise your kids the way, say, you would have wanted to be raised, because you would have been raised at a different time. You have to raise them for the time that they're in, so. But anyway, we left the city. We ended up leaving the city now about 6-7 years ago, and it was right before COVID time. So, and then my 3rd oldest was mostly, from high school on, the COVID thing had her mostly home and kind of online schooled. And then my youngest, number 4, she went to the online homeschool through the state. So that worked out much better in both cases. So the public schools thing down there really, turned into really a disaster. So it's really, really sad what's happened to the state, which is why I'm doing the show now, because it's just gotten so extreme. And this upcoming election seems so important. And originally I was getting to the point where I was going to do a more, kind of like a weekly church service thing, which I'm still probably going to do. That's Nordic Disciples of Christ. But that's a whole different thing. So we'll see about that later. And this is kind of practice for that, I guess. That I have to do because of another plan that I have that got in the way of the whole homestead thing, which is part of the story. but then you have to have a weekly meeting and a weekly service or whatever for that. So anyway, so I started making content. We came here, and then my content went pretty much completely apolitical. I tried to avoid politics for a long time now. It's been a lot of really great nature content about the area, a lot of farming, homesteading content, home projects, and I did a lot of supporting manufacturing both here and on LinkedIn, on YouTube. I did other just online and stuff. I've done a lot of anecdotal support of manufacturing. I also did a lot of pushing for some changes in manufacturing in Minnesota, all across the state, really going all over the state, talking to different people, having interviews and then talking to them about my ideas and stuff like that. And that did not work out very well. So that's part of the story also. So yeah, so we moved up here, and now I have been doing, now for a couple months, this is episode 10, so this is our 10th week of what is now called Norseman Narratives. At first I just called it Live at 5. Didn't really know what kind of name to have for it or how it was going to work out. But that's really what the show is about, is narrative, right? Correcting the false narratives that they're presenting for us right now, because it's really gone off the rails. So it's about Norseman narratives. It's about correcting the narrative and correcting the narrative, because that's the important part, because everything really flows from narrative. So still homesteading content, still farming content, still nature content, family content, not as much just as much. There's still Christian content, but probably before, like a good percentage of the feed and the content I was sharing, the things I was doing was very religiously leaning or Christian leaning kind of stuff. And that I kind of separated out to Nordic Disciples of Christ, and then have kind of fallen away from that. So, but we'll keep that more on that page. This page, though, is going to remain political for the foreseeable future here, and still mixing in all of the Norseman homesteading, nature, and Brainerd Lakes area stuff. It's important to point out also that I am in no way officially affiliated with any candidate, any Republican Party. Like, nobody's moderating my content. My content's not on behalf of anybody. My content is not endorsed by anybody just because they appear on my channel or comment on my channel or are friends with me or associated with me. Some of my views are going to be pretty, everybody's got their own views, and I'm just out here. This right now is unscripted. None of this is planned or strategic, really. Though I do have kind of my own strategy. I've always been kind of like an unpaid freelance Republican. We could say that, right? But just nothing official, nothing associated with anybody. Nor do even within my own family, my views are not endorsed by anybody in my own family, really. So, not anybody. Some people. Some are, some aren't. But I'm just saying, there's people in my own family that would not appreciate my view on things. A lot of people also, they have their preconceived narratives that they've been taught, and when you try to express a different narrative, that can really upset people. So, especially in my view, the more false their narrative is, the more it offends them when you tell them the truth. That's at work. I mean, you could literally at work, people will tell you you're rude because you just tell them the truth. Like, no, it's this way. Oh, you're rude. No, I wasn't rude. You were rude, actually, because you were lying or you were wrong, and I had to correct you, right? So if I'm going to correct you, I'm going to correct you. And is that rude? I don't know. Kind of in our culture, maybe it is here, So certainly in German culture, it's not. I've lived I should tell you a little bit about myself as well, and my family. I'm from Minnesota, born and raised. My parents are from here. My grandparents are from here. My great grandparents are from here, and my great grandparents are from here. So we are early settlers. And then if you want to follow, there's some lines that go all the way back to colonials through my grandma and through the Hicks and stuff like that. It goes all the way back to like the colonials and stuff like the English and things like that. But I do not identify at all as English. I am a northern Minnesota Scandinavian person with an affinity for Germanic things because of my experience in life. And I'm also 12.5% German. So my great grandmother on my bio dad's side was a German immigrant. So would have been legitimately an immigrant, not a settler, not a colonizer, an immigrant. She immigrated here and then married a Swedish man. And their kids married Swedes and their kids married. So that side is mostly Swedish. And then on my grandfather's side, there's some question Swedish, Norwegian, what exactly the percentage of this or that or whatever is, I don't know. So, and then there's some English through my grandma, but I don't talk about that. She always likes to remind me. She goes, "Well, Trav," she says, "Well, Trav, I'm Scots-Irish, And I always go, "Yeah, but you married a Norwegian, so it's okay." Yeah, she hates that one, but I love it. It's so funny. So anyway, so that's the way I see things. I'm born and raised here. I'm mostly Swedish, some Norwegian, a little bit of German. I am from Black Duck, Bemidji, up north. I was born in Bemidji, and around 7, 8 years old, something like that, my mother moved me down. Again, we lived in Blaine, Spring Lake Park. I think we actually lived in Mounds View for a couple. There's a little spot right there. They're all within a few miles of one another. And we lived right there around the Spring Lake Park High School area. Spring Lake Park School District. From the time I was 7. And then I continued to live there until I was 19, I think. And then I went forest firefighting. Not sure exactly. I'm trying to think of the exact order. I went up north to stay with I spent every summer up there when I was a kid until somewhere in my teenage years. And then I moved up there when I was 19. I went forest firefighting so I went forest firefighting first, and then I went up there. I went forest firefighting in, I want to say, 94, 95. There's big fires out west, and they took volunteers. Then I came back. Then I moved up north. And then from up north, I turned 21 when I entered basic training in the U.S. Army. So, and then I was in the Army for 4.5 years. 2 years of that I spent in Germany, where I met my wife, and we married. And then after the Army, I came back here, and I was doing subcontracting roofing and stuff like that. But I was pretty hurt, and it was hard. I don't know. But anyway, I was doing roofing back then, and then there was just various things. It didn't really work out at that time. My wife was not happy with the relocation here, and so we ended up actually going back to Germany. We lived there for 5 years. That's where I learned my trade as a tool maker. Having left the Army, I needed a new trade. I was no longer, quite frankly, I just wasn't physically capable at that time, or at all, really. I wasn't physically capable of, I needed a new career that was less strenuous than things I had done previously. So I got to Germany. I got employed through what we would call a temp service at a factory called the Firma Loch, and they were doing automobile parts for Volkswagen, Audi, and I saw the tool and die, the stamping dies, and I was like, I'm doing that. That's what I want to do. So I had to work on a press. I started out on a 300-ton press, and then the company I was at, Loch, they did not allow anybody who wasn't a full-blooded, natural-born German to become a tool maker there. So there was another company in a little outside of town called Birkenfeld, and called the Firma Hugel. And so I went to the temp service, and I'm like, but I want to do an apprenticeship as tool and die. They already said they're not going to do that there. So they found me this other place, and I went there. And I had to work on a press there. I was on a 600-ton Helmerding, and I was teaching myself German with a magazine that they called the Bild Zeitung, which is like a Inquirer here, like a tabloid, but it was very simple German, so I just used that. Actually, my father-in-law taught me that trick. You take the first 20 words you don't know, and you do little flashcards. The word on, English on one side, German on the other, and then throughout the day you just look at them. And then the next day the same thing, the next day the same thing, and I just did that until I learned German, and it worked really well. So once I was able to take the test and I qualified, I had to work on the press for a little while, and then I had to wait for the school year to start. I had to be tested in German, pass and be qualified, and then I was able to do my apprenticeship as a tool and die maker there, which is normally like 3 full years and a half year, but I was able to save a portion of that, like a year of that, for because it was called a Umschulung. I didn't need to take like the basic stuff, and I already had done my time on the press, so I was changing careers within kind of the same career, so they had a little bit different requirements of what classes I had to take. So I did that. I learned tool and die at the Firma Hugel GmbH in Birkenfeld, Germany, and they also were a high production facility for Volkswagen Audi. So we primarily, like 99% of the business was for Volkswagen Audi. So auto parts. I was an auto parts producer. And then I moved back here, and in 2007, we moved back to Blaine because I thought that was the best place to bring my wife and kids. And my wife is a little bit more, I'm more of like a country person, but she's more of like a city person, kind of like a Green Acres thing, She's my Zsa Zsa Gabor. So the suburbs were also kind of a compromise in that sense. So we went and we moved back there. And then, like I said, various things happened, and we moved up here. Yeah, and so that's kind of the long and short of it. I've worked in tool and die. When I moved up here, so when I first, we could kind of talk about that, the manufacturing thing. So, how far has it progressed, the whole plan, right? From when we had the big plan and we're like, okay, we're going. We had an initial 5-year plan. I will say I did better on my 5-year plan than I've ever done before, because I've always been kind of doing 5-year plans. And, you got to adjust along the way. You make it so far, whatever, and then, somewhere along the way, maybe you make a new plan. But it's always good to just at least have a plan that you're working towards. So we obviously do not have the farm. We did not get the farm yet. There was county land and stuff to get, but the long and short of it is, the church thing came up, and I'm very, I thought the Lord wanted me to buy the church, so I bought the church, and I have that whole plan with the church, and that kind of got in the way. Like I said, so the plan changed, but the plan did progress. I mean, we're working on, I've always raised chickens. It's nothing to do with farming. That's more just for the kids and stuff, for the eggs and the meat and the whatever. We have goats now. We have never milked the goats. We were going to start by milking goats. But some other things came in the way too, which is reality, which is you move outside. So here's the thing. So I moved up here, being a tool maker, there's kind of a lot of jobs in the city, and there's a few places up here. There's not a lot of tool makers, and I really just didn't think it would be an issue. But we got up here, and there's kind of and it kind of goes with this driving thing up here too. Let me start with that anecdotally. So here in this area, there's the one downside of the Brainerd Lakes area is the way the people drive. And I think it's like they have a chip on their shoulder about the seasonal people or something, or I don't know what it is. But they drive very slow, and there's a lot of just 2-lane roads, where you have to pass people and stuff. Like, they don't want you even to pass them. They will drive under the speed limit, and then if you try to pass them, they will speed up to try to stop you from passing them. A couple weeks ago, I was coming back on 210, and there was somebody doing that, and they had a whole line of cars behind them. They're driving, and so everywhere where you could pass, they would speed up, right? And then when you couldn't pass, they would slow way down, and they just kept doing this and kept doing this. And I was about 3 cars back, and we came to a place, where it was safe, where there's a big hill or whatever, and I could pass them. So there was nobody coming, and I whipped by them and went on about my business. So I pass, and I'm going, and I come rolling into town. I kid you not. I'm in Brainerd at the time, too. He must have had the one Brainerd cop, so it's both were there or whatever. He was on that corner, and he hits the lights on me. It was a Baxter cop. And so I'm like, good local kid. I didn't recognize the name, too, but I won't say. But so I pulled right over and pulled up next to the Brainerd cop, and I just parked right there. And I'm wondering what's going on. Is this guy about to give me a ticket for, going a couple of miles an hour over? I mean, the whole traffic was, I didn't know what was going on. So he's like, anyway, he tells me, he gets a call from these people, right? And they tell him that I was driving crazy. I passed him on the, I think he said they said I passed him on the shoulder or something. I was tailgating him. I was never even behind him. I was 3 cars behind him. Was never even behind these people. And when I came into Baxter, I kind of saw him too. That's why I was like, look at these people here. So he basically kept calling me a liar too. Like, that did start to really frustrate me. I have a lot of respect for law enforcement, so it doesn't matter anyway. Whether they're right or wrong doesn't matter. At that time, you just yes sir and amen and move on. And if you got to talk to in front of a judge, do it then. So other than that, you're an idiot. So, because it just doesn't make sense. I just don't even understand it. And I think most people don't understand it. But they can't shoot you and then they go home for dinner. And the worst that happens is they get 2 weeks off, paid vacation. Literally. So why are you arguing? I don't know. It's just, and they're going to do with it. I mean, you don't just, you don't have to, but, express yourself. But just, I mean, anything beyond that is foolish. Anyway, so he was basically calling me a liar, which was a little frustrating. And then he said, well, the 2 people said the same thing or whatever. And I was like, what? And then I thought for a second and I meant, you mean 2 people in the same car? And he's like, well, yeah. And it's like, well, guy, 2 people. So anyway, the whole point is they just didn't want to be passed. And they get to decide whether or not you pass. They get to decide how you drive, how fast you drive, what you do, because they're the arbiter and they know, and they're whatever it is, dude. I don't know, but it is wild behavior. And I've never seen it anywhere else. In fact, in Minnesota, most of Minnesota is the opposite. You can tell when you come into Minnesota, like literally when you cross the border, because I've traveled a lot. And when you come across the border in Minnesota, I mean, people are just like, foo, foo, it's nuts. It's just crazy. It's like Chicago. If you've ever driven through Chicago, holy cow, man. That's some wild stuff. That's like go-go speed racer through the highways in Chicago and stuff. It's nuts. So anyway, Yeah, so that's a very pervasive attitude here. I noticed right away. And my wife, I remember it was like the first few months we were here, I was pretty frustrated about how it was going. She goes, just drive slower than them and you won't notice. So that's what I did, and it helps. But if you got to get to and from work and you're traveling, why should you have to put up with that? But anyway, and plus it's dangerous. If you're trying to stop people from passing you, that's extremely dangerous. So pulling me over they should pull that person over. Honestly, that person was the person putting people at risk. The cop wanted to lecture me. And it's like, no, actually, I'm not going to argue, because I don't argue with the police. Like I just said, it's stupid. But I did make it kind of clear that, like, no. But anyway, they're the ones actually being dangerous, right? It's extremely dangerous to do that. And it's a real attitude problem. And anyway, so that ties into the work environment around here. So I come up here and I go put my resumes around, and like the one place, Pequot, they're like, well, we have an old guy that does that. And I'm like, okay, well, hire me, and then you'll have two guys that do it, and you can do more of it. You know what I mean? They didn't want to do it. So I'm like, whatever, I don't get it. Okay, fine. Then I go over to Clow, and I interview with him, and we go walking around, right? And we come into the press room, and they don't even, not that I saw anyway, they're not even running coils up there. They're doing 8-foot strips of, this guy's doing like 3/8, probably 3/8 by 6-inch by 8-foot strips of probably cold roll. And he's hand feeding it through a stamping press, right? That slaps out what they call blanks. So it just cuts out a 2-dimensional profile, cuts it out of a piece of metal. And that's called making a blank. And then they do a lot of press brake stuff. It's a very cheap, very low skill level kind of thing, easy to do. Stamp out some, you build what's called a compound die, you blank out a blank, you bend it in a brake press, which is that's not to take away from the brake press people. Those are highly skilled people that can do that without losing their fingers too. But it's not I should have said it that way. From a tool and die perspective, it's a pretty simple thing that they're doing. And then we have compound dies is like the most simple thing that we do. So I should have been more clear about that, not to insult anybody's trades. But doing compound dies is pretty simple stuff. And a part of the process is EDM wire cutting, so that'll come up in a second. So anyway, we come in, we're going through, see this guy, he's kind of long-haired dude. He's got his bandana on like I wore when I was a kid, and he's sweating, he's just pouring sweat, it's hot as hell in there, he's pounding steel, boom, 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 and I'm like, heck yeah, you got some good operators, And he looks over at the guy like this, and he looks at me and he's like, what, them? I call them the undesirables, come on, And I'm like, oh, okay. I'm like, what? I was shocked, actually. I was stunned. And this is an old man, Reggie Clow. I think it was his kid. And there's anyway, I'll finish it up. It doesn't end as bad, but it's still not good. So he shows me all around, walks me through there, meets some people, whatever. And then he's like, yeah, okay, so, we'll hire you. We'll put you on third shift in the EDM room. And they cut out all they're doing is cutting out compound dies, and they want one done every like half hour or something through the EDM, which you can't even get. I mean, how are they even cutting that? So I don't know. That was an exaggeration and something. I don't know what he was even talking about. So maybe he's got some awesome machine and process where they can just burn them out of there and da 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 da. But you got to set it up and you got to cut it, and it doesn't cut super fast. Maybe they had different machines. I don't know. It was a while ago. Anyway. I swear he was like he wanted a compound die every half hour out of the EDM at night. You know what I mean? So I'm like, well, I'm a bench tool maker though. You know what I mean? So I want to continue doing that. Obviously, that's important to my career. I have to keep on doing what I do, right? And he was like, you have to wait your turn to do that. I'm like, what do you mean wait my turn? Why would you want to put me in a position that doesn't match where I'm most valuable? And he says, well, what do you want me to have, a mutiny on my hands? And I was just like, I just didn't understand it. I didn't understand it at all. I was kind of insulted. I was insulted about how he talked about his workers. And so I was kind of rude with him too, and it did not work out. So to wrap that up in not so bad, because Clow is a big company here, and you know, it's fine what they're doing or whatever. A lot of people work there and are I don't know that people are that. I don't hear a lot of. But anyway, they're a big company in the area, and the old man is Reggie Clow, and supposedly, as is the case throughout most of the state, you know, that generation, those guys were awesome. So this was his kid. And then I found out from some other workers that after that, I did go around kind of pissing on him a little bit because, you know, that bugged me. So, but I did find out later that his old man made him go out and work with the workers on the floor for like a whole year. He had to go work with different people on the floor and stuff like that. And then I might have heard that somebody else is running it now, like his sister, like he wasn't doing good. And the sister's doing it now or something. Which is the opposite of Burmo, because there the aunt was doing it. Because in the beginning the kid was, Burtis's kid, I used to smoke cigars with back when I smoked and hang out with at work and stuff. He was a cool dude, but he just wasn't ready for it or something, right? So the aunt did it for a while, but now he's taken over Burmo, and I guess he's crushing it. He's just knocking it right out of the ballpark, so that's awesome. And probably Clow's kid came around too, what do I know? So anyway, the anecdotal point of that, though, is this whole, like, it's not your turn thing. So I ended up then, a buddy of mine from the city that I had worked with at another shop, he had worked at another shop down there that did machining called PPC, and they're out in Crosby, and they had a little shop there. So he referenced me over there, and I got to go over there. And the last job that I had down in the city, I was doing CAD and CAM. So if you don't know what that means, it just means that as a tool maker, I was doing the bench tool making, all the bench stuff, in-press repair stuff, working with the press room, even doing like some setup stuff with them and stuff like that, doing a lot of stuff there. And then we also, because there was only me and then an older guy, Mark Mundell, and originally there was this guy, Neil, but then he left. So we did the CNC, the EDM, the programming. We did run in the CNC and the EDM and the programming, and some drawing and stuff too with SolidWorks and CamWorks for the programs. So I come up here, I'm going to PPC, he recommends me over there, and I'm like, I'll take this as like a machining position, right? Which is an operator position, which is fine if that's your cup of tea, like it would be my wife's cup of tea. And other people I've worked with, they love it, right? But I am a super high energy person. And I am a person that needs a lot of, I need to be both mental and physical and have some variety and do things like that. I simply can't, I can't just do repetitive like work for very long without really almost going crazy. Like I just can't do it. I can't do it. Physically, mentally, like I start acting goofy. You know what I mean? I can't take it. It's almost like torture to me. So I went there and I was like, yeah, I want to do programming and machining like I'm doing right now at Burmo. I'll do that here if you want. Oh, yeah. Then they hire me. And the next thing you know, I'm operating 3 machines. I'm not doing any programming, and I'm not doing any drawing. I'm not doing any CAD or CAM work at all. All the CAD CAM work is being done in the city. They never had any intention of it. I wasn't even doing setups, or wasn't even supposedly doing setups. Like they were paying me really. I lost 40%. My pay went down when I got up here, and I'm like, "Hey, what's going on?" And so they're like, "Oh, if you want to make more money, you got to do setups." And I'm like, I'm already doing the setups. So the one guy I was working with, so it was me. It was a night shift. It was me and 2 other guys. The one was supposed to be the supervisor and another dude. And the one dude would kind of do something. The other one who was supposed to be the supervisor. And then he blew his knee out like a couple of weeks after I started there. He blew his knee out at playing RC cars. And they brought him in a lazy boy chair and everything, and he wouldn't do anything. I was doing everything. And then they said, well, if you want to get paid more, you got to do setup or you got to be a supervisor. And I'm like, I'm already doing all the setup on all my machines. What do you mean I'm a tool maker? Of course I can do setup. What are you talking about? So then they gave me a little bit more, but they still wouldn't even, they were like, oh, they couldn't give me even more and wouldn't let me do any of that work. But they wanted me to run machines nonstop. So obviously that didn't work out. So, and then COVID hit. And then after COVID, I ended up at another shop where I was at least working on tooling. This was rotational molds. Best people ever. Love them. Love the shop. Love the work. Okay. And at least I was working on tooling. But again, they told me I was going to be the supervisor. I was no kind of supervisor. They told me I was going to be doing programming and drawing and all that. Nothing. None of it. It was an operator position. That's all it was. And again, the one guy, he literally broke my hand. I couldn't shake anybody's hands for 2 years. I couldn't shake with this hand properly because he was so mad. I argued with him over 25 cents. He was so mad giving me that 25 cents just on, I'm like, on principle. If you can't give me that 25 cents, I can't work for it. He broke my hand. He shook my hand and he broke my hand right here. And I'm not a doctor guy, so for like 2 years I couldn't shake. Now it's better. So whatever. And I still like the guy, you know. But, and then when it came time, when they had work to do more programming and CAD and CAM work, and they got a lathe going and everything, they hired his cousin's friend instead to do that. So they already had me doing operating. They were never going to let me do that, and they never did, you know. And so then at that point, I had got approached by Tesla, was trying to recruit me, and I went through this whole like 6-stage process. It was crazy to go down and be a tool and die guy down when they opened the Gigafactory in Texas. And I'd never thought of leaving Minnesota before, never even considered it. But for Tesla and Elon Musk and all that, and I was like, I'm going to be the first in the door at the Gigafactory, you know, like which would have been the most famous factory in the world at the time. It just would have been like a dream come true. So I went through 6 stages. A couple weeks ago they did that too. I swear they can tell if I'm on the phone and they start barking. Anyway, I went through 6 stages and then I just got ghosted. So it was pretty wild. So I thought, well, if I was really willing to go to Texas, I could probably just go back and work in the city. So that's what I did. I went and got a tool die job in the city that I worked for the last, well, now it's been a year ago, but for like 3.5 years. And that was a nightmare. It was just a nightmare. It was just a nightmare. And then because we were living here and working in the city, I had previously been religiously kind of opposed to debt, but we took on a bunch of debt because we had to have a reliable vehicle. We got an RV park down there and a travel trailer and everything to stay in. We were actually staying in hotels for a while during the winter when it was closed, until we were able to rent a room from a work colleague. And then, you know, just because of the situation, I mean, we were just really in a bad spot, and it really was terrible. So then we just recently came back here, and it was the same thing. I got hired by another shop up here that's a machine shop. Swore up and down I was going to be doing programming and, you know, what they called onesies and twosies, like it was something special, this and that. And I'm like, it's not like they don't know what a tool and die maker is. And they, oh, yeah. Got me in. It was slow when they hired me. They were really slow. So in the beginning, for like the first 3 weeks, I got some Mastercam. I did some Mastercam stuff with the kid. It was really good. It actually taught me stuff I didn't know because I had had some Mastercam, CAD Cam stuff at the place down in the cities, or Mastercam. Not CAD Cam. It is CAD and Cam, but most of the CAD is done on SolidWorks. Or the CAD is mostly done on SolidWorks, and the Cam which a lot of you probably won't even understand. But anyway, so doing the Mastercam stuff, I got some good training on that for like 3 weeks. And then they were going to switch me. I got hired for the weekend shift. That's what I was working down there too in the city. And that weekend shift works out good for the grandkids. So they do that for 3 weeks. They switch me to the weekend shift. And then the guy had given me this list of parts when I was still on the 3 weeks. So I kept working on that list thinking I was supposed to do that. And then they gave me no more information. The one kid's, are you even supposed to be doing that? Why are you doing that? This and that. They started acting really weird. Next thing you know, I'm just operating. All I'm doing is operating. And I'm like, okay, well, I'm finishing this list, right? And then there's some other things you wouldn't understand about it. And it was a total bait and switch, just a scam job. Just unbelievable. Unbelievable. So the next thing you know, I'm just operating again. And then they bring somebody else back. He was apparently sick or something. And they wanted me to do operating 2 machines and helping him with some stuff and this and that. But when I would do the machine, I would do it by myself, Just wild. Straight right back. So the whole thing again is you got to wait your turn. Doesn't matter what your career is. Doesn't matter what your resume is. Doesn't matter what position you want, right? Doesn't matter if you're educated, because a tool maker up here is somebody who waited their turn and is related to somebody. And or, right? Like, that's actually Minnesota-wide. It's one of the issues. So they stopped doing actual apprenticeships for tool and die makers. And what they do now is this thing called Machine Tool Technologies. And now they've even cranked it down. They got a 6-month course. So they'll make you pay for 6 months to go to the CLC to then go get a job to hit a button. And put a part, hit a button. Put the block in there, hit a button. So they want you to pay to get the job where they don't want to pay you, by the way. Right? And all the jobs left, like I told them, it's like they're like a golem guarding a corpse. It's already dead. Ford's gone. And like if they knew like what was going on other places, they don't even really know, right? It's just the result of what's called nepotism, corruption, and what's called elite overproduction. So they're trying now to, so even they don't even want, they want it basically 2 classes or whatever. You know what I mean? They don't even want the scale. They don't want the in-between. And they don't even really understand that it doesn't work that way. Like Ford could never function that way. Ford wouldn't exist. The big 3 wouldn't exist. They have unions and stuff like that. And like Burma, for instance, is a union shop. Some of the places down in the city are union. But they don't. And up here too. By the way, when you get a job up here, no job description. Like in the city, there has to be you get your job description and everything. You know what job you got hired for, and you work the job you got hired for. My point is, up here, they will tell you whatever you want to hear. They really just want you to push that button. So if you're a manufacturing general laborer, like my wife is, for instance, which she loves it. Her job right now is very, very physical and hard, and she liked her job in the city also better, quite frankly. But she does like the company and the people, and she's actually working now. We went and worked in the city for a while, came back, and she's at the same company she was at when she left here. So she went right back to that company. So if you are a general manufacturing laborer, you can come here and you can find work. But the pay scale, here's the other thing. So the other thing I could... Come here, Barbie. Ruby, I would like you to stop that, please. Please, stop. Stop. Barbie, go in here and lay down. Come on. Go. Yeah, that's... Oh. This is the second time, not very professional, trying to do a show with this going on. So, I don't know. She did this to me one other time, too. I could shut it off and come back, huh? Anyway, so This happened to me last time. This is like 4 or 5 episodes ago too. Now I can't even think anymore. Once you hear her yip at you 27,000 times, for no apparent reason at all, other than she can hear me talking right there. That's why. It's because I'm out here. No, actually, last time though, I think it was when I was in the kitchen. But anyway, gonna have to shut it off. I'm gonna come back live if you want to see. I'm gonna just have to break this video in half. I will be back in a few minutes. Thanks.